Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about resistance. Now this has been a request video for a very long time. Many players have gone, Ken, you've talked about this over and over. What is it? What is resistance? So let's dive into it here. Resistance is the amount of damage that is reduced when you shoot upon a robot. Now, what do I mean by that specifically? We'll sum it, but let's break it down to you. Say you're using the strongest setup in the game. The shotgun setup, you're doing around this much damage with it. I did the math. You're doing 17k with the Nemesis, 9k with the breakers. So you're doing around this much damage. So say you're facing one of the strongest tanks in the game. That would be Rusty, the Storm. Believe it or not, the Storm does have resistance. The Rex, the Reaper, the Curious, and the Plex. The Plex, they all have, each resistance varies. Some are 5%, some are 7%, others are, well, 13%. Now with the AI, however, they're on steroids, so they could be anywhere from 35 to who knows percent-wise in resistance, so that's why they're so dang strong. But getting back into that later, the resistance that you're doing, for example, we'll take the Rusty. 9% is how much he has with resistance, and you're doing around this much damage with the shotgun. So when you shoot at a Rusty, it's active each time you shoot it, especially with a real player and the AI. So you're actually doing this much damage. So basically the 9% is minusing the current damage that you're doing with those weapons. So you're only doing around this much damage. So I did a few games here. One solo to show you the steroid AI, and one with players to show you what it would be like when you're facing a PvP. So let's get into game number 1. So game number 1, we have landed on lava map, and I'm using the Rusty with the Eagle Eye Prime. So as you can see, I'm shooting at another Rusty. He deployed his shield, I deployed mine, hiding against the wall so the missiles don't hit me as bad, but they still do. And I just took out that thing down there that I believed was probably a Rust. Rust has no resistance whatsoever, that's why he went down so fast. But with the Rusty, you saw that it took me forever. Now down here, I believe is a Prime. I'm doing my best to shoot at him. I believe it's a Bellatrix. She doesn't have that much resistance, but she has a little bit. I think around maybe 2, maybe 3% resistance. But then again, the AI, they're on steroids, so it's probably around 5, 4. But right here is a Mech, and Mech has very little resistance, but the Alden, however, does have some good resistance. Round 4 exactly in percentage of resistance, but he will go down quite fast. But take in mind, these are the AI, so what I'm saying is probably around 10 or 7 for him because they're on steroids. So now I'm going to use the Crusher. The Crusher, as we all know, has no resistance whatsoever, but he has amazing firepower. So right there, that was a Reaper, I believe, or a Rex. Either a Rex or Reaper, but you saw that he survived that full power shot. And this setup is a really strong setup. When you play in a PvP match, you're able to one-shot people. But in this case, with the steroided AI, there's so much resistance that they're able to survive. See, like this Bella, for example, full shot took her to health. That's because the resistance saved her. So the damage that I shot at her was minus. So I'm only doing this much damage to each of the bots that I shoot at with the Crusher. Meanwhile, they're doing more damage than I am because I have no resistance at all. So that's one thing that I want to point out with AI matches, is that they do have resistance, which is, I don't know why they did that. Maybe to make it a challenge is what I heard, but who knows. But now I'm using the Reaper, and the Reaper has the strongest resistance in the game. I mean, you can even add on to that resistance with any of the other robots to make them stronger with the module here on my screen called the armor power-up, basically. This basically gives you an extra 30%. As you can see, 30% damage reduced. That's basically what resistance is, only the robots come with their pre-owned resistance. The Reaper is able to withhold certain amount of percentage from the current meta of the robot. But if you add that armor to the Reaper, for example, 13%, if I did my math correctly, The Reaper should have around, if you have max level everything, max level 25% HP with the boosts, and max level 30% reduction on the armor. Add that to his 13%, you'll be having around 80% resistance. So a Crusher is going to take a long time, so around maybe 5-10 shots on a Reaper if they're a human player. And that's if you can hit them too, because Primes, as we know, are very mobile. So they take a lot of pre-aim and a lot of skill to kill one of these with a non-Menta Prime or a non-Menta robot. A lot of players believe that if the non-Mentas were buffed, then it would give the Primes a bit more of a challenge. And I agree with that 100%. I believe that if they gave the robots a buff and returned weapons to their former glory as they were in the Golden Age era when I started out, the game would be a lot different than it is today. Beforehand, I was able to kill a Prime easily with just a Rusty and some Titans, but not anymore. So now on game number 2, we've landed in City Map. I'm using the Storm. Now with the Storm, you have to remember, his resistance is all in the shield. Once that shield is gone, it's over. He has nothing left. Now, he only has 7% of resistance when that shield is active. So you saw a little sliver, it falls down. So each time that player from the back, we're going against a Wolfpack clan member. Very good clan. No Primes that I know of though, so I'm just going to use the old non-Primes. I'm going to use no Primes against this player. I'm going to do the old-fashioned non-Menta versus non-Menta. And he's in a Curious. So I'm giving him, no, scratch that, he's in a Ratcher. So he put the cage over the top of me, didn't do anything. But the Ratcher has no resistance whatsoever. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can get rid of him here. Bam, bam, boom, there he goes. It takes a lot longer to take him out, but we did get him in the end. So, you can see that I have barely a sliver left. Now once I deploy this, 2 more shots with the resistance of 7%, and bam, it's gone. Now with him, he's using a Curious now, and you can see I'm shooting him, but it's taking me a while. That's because the Curious has 5% resistance, so each time, no, scratch that, it's the Plex, so he has 7 resistance. So each time I'm shooting him, that 7% is reducing my damage. So now I'm going to use the Plex with the rocket launcher, and as you can see, 7% on the Rusty kept him from dying. He only dropped him to half. But once another one, that 7% isn't going to keep him alive, especially with this high rocket setup. Now with him, however, it's a little different because it's a player. So the game's a little bit different. When you're doing people and people, the AI are not on steroids. They're basically like a person. They have the same amount of resistance as a person. Exactly what you would have. Now, if you're doing a solo, however, the AI are steroided, so they'll have more resistance than what is actually supposed to be when playing a match. So, I'm doing some pretty good damage here with this setup, the Hornet drill bit Plex. I'm surviving pretty well, as you can see. I'm only down like almost to half, and I'm still doing pretty good. That's because, like I said, the resistance. It keeps you alive. So, going through it, you can see that I'm able to hit right through. Now, this is where it comes in handy for the Rusty, because not only does he have that resistance, but he also has that shield, so he has another cushion of protection. So this guy loves to use the teleport. Good way to avoid damage that I'm doing with this Hornet. Probably the best way to avoid it is with the teleport. Teleport is probably the best thing that you can have when you're using against it. So let's go ahead and see if we can find him so I can show you. So right here, there's a building right there. I'm not going to be able to hit him. I also had an SOP player with me. He was using a Prime. I wasn't. It just depends on your playstyle. Some people like to use the Mentas. Some people don't. So right here, I'm going to send a little rocket to his way. You could saw that I hit him just a little bit with that splash damage because he was right on the edge. I have a range of around 25 meters with splash damage right here. But they have to be right on the edge with that dome shield if I'm going to hit them. Now with this I have to get closer. Now he teleported out of there. Now right here, bam, hit him one more time. Resistance 5% is reduced. My 7% is getting demolished because it's active each time, but those miniguns just pack a punch. So that was game number 2, and we only did around 900,000 damage and 4 kills. Really good game, but that is resistance.